Your vision becomes clear when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens. There are people in this world born with their eyes turned inward. They see what others miss. They feel what others ignore. They live with one foot in tangible reality, and the other in that invisible realm of deep meaning. Jung called them introverted intuitives, and he believed that of all personality types, they suffer the most. But this suffering isn't ordinary. It's not the pain of physical hardship or the agony of obvious drama. It's something far more subtle and constant. The existential pain of a soul that can't find its place in a world designed for others. It's the loneliness of walking through crowds feeling like you speak a language no one else understands. It's the exhaustion of explaining the unexplainable, of translating emotions that have no words, of feeling too much in a society that prefers to feel little. Picture this for a moment, carrying within you an ocean of perceptions, insights, and deep connections, but living in a world that only values the surface of the lake. It's like being a jazz musician in a world of elevator music, a philosopher in a civilization that only reads instruction manuals. This is the sacred and painful territory of the intuitive, the space between the visible and invisible, between what is and what could be, a place where the soul expands but also contracts, where sensitivity is both gift and burden. And in that space, at that border between worlds, begins a journey few understand, but many need to hear. Because if you recognize yourself in these words, if you feel something inside awakening as you hear this, then you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're not too much. You're simply different. And that difference, though it hurts, might be your greatest gift to the world. But first, we need to understand why being who you are hurts so much. Some children arrive in this world as if carrying a secret map to territories others cannot see. From early on, they're different, not in an obvious or dramatic way, but in a subtle way that parents can barely describe. He's so mature for his age, they say. She's always thinking about deep things. Sometimes I get the feeling he sees things I don't see. These are the INFJ and INTJ children, the spiritual archetypes of the personality world. Jung would have recognized them immediately, little guardians of the unconscious, natural carriers of symbols and meanings most adults have forgotten. While other kids ask, "What is that?" they ask, "Why does it exist?" While others are content to play, they observe how others play, looking for patterns, trying to decode the invisible rules of human interaction. At recess, you find them under the tree, not because they're antisocial, but because the chaos overwhelms them. It's not that they don't want friends, it's that they need friends who speak their emotional language. And that language, they discover very early, is rare in their generation. They feel like anthropologists studying an alien culture. Every social exchange is an experiment. If I smile this way, will they accept me? If I say what I really think, will they understand me or think I'm weird? Sensitivity becomes both their superpower and their kryptonite. They sense when the teacher is sad, even when she's smiling. They feel the tension between their parents before the parents themselves recognize it. They absorb emotions from the environment like sponges, but no one teaches them how to wring out the water afterward. And then begins the isolation. Not the isolation of those who are rejected, but the isolation of those who withdraw to protect themselves. They learn that their inner world is too vast, too complex, too intense to share freely. They develop a double life, the public version that smiles and nods and says the right things, and the private version that lives in their room with books, music, or fantasies no one else would understand. In adolescence, this intensifies. While their peers worry about fitting in, they worry about finding their purpose. While others seek popularity, they seek authenticity. And in a life stage where being different is almost a social crime, their difference becomes an increasingly heavy burden. They become silent observers of a world they can't completely decode. They're like field researchers studying a strange tribe, taking mental notes on behaviors that seem absurd to them, but that apparently everyone understands except them. And here's the deepest pain. It's not that they can't connect with others. It's that when they try, when they open their heart and show their true depth, they're often met with discomfort, misunderstanding, or worse, pity. So they learn the most devastating lesson of all, that their gift for feeling the invisible also condemns them to being invisible to most of the world. And this learning will follow them into adulthood, where they'll discover that the adult world is no more compassionate toward their sensitivity than the childhood world. Picture this. You're sitting in a corporate meeting. The topic of the day is optimizing team productivity. For an hour, you listen to empty buzzwords dancing in circles. We need to leverage synergies. Let's think outside the box. We must maximize our potential. Meanwhile, your mind observes what's actually happening. The unresolved tension between two colleagues, the manager's fear of losing control, everyone's silent desperation to find meaning in tasks that feel mechanical and soulless. You want to scream. Why aren't we talking about what actually matters? Why are we pretending these metrics are more important than the fact that everyone here feels empty inside? But you know if you do, they'll see you as the troublemaker, the one who complicates simple things. Cut to scrolling through social media. Your feed is flooded with perfect photos, copy-paste motivational quotes, surface-level debates about deep topics. You watch people passionately arguing about things they haven't studied, proclaiming truths they haven't lived. Your soul contracts, not from envy or judgment, but from the sadness of seeing so much human energy wasted on the surface, while the real questions of existence remain untouched. You try to engage. You post something genuine, something from the heart. It gets 3 likes and no comments. But the meme posted right after gets 47 reactions and 15 comments. The message is crystal clear. Depth doesn't sell. Authenticity makes people uncomfortable. Vulnerability gets interpreted as weakness. Now imagine you're at a family gathering. Your aunt asks for the 100th time, "So when are you settling down? When are you going to get a real job? Don't you want stability?" And when you try to explain that you're in a process of self-discovery, that you're exploring your purpose, that you want to understand who you are before committing to someone else's expectations, they look at you like you're speaking in code. "Oh, don't overthink it," they say. "Life is simple. You're making it too complicated." But for you, life can't be simple when you feel the complexity of existence pulsing in your chest. You can't not overthink when your mind is naturally an explorer of deep territories. This is the painful reality of the intuitive in the modern world, living in a society that rewards speed over reflection, quantity over quality, appearance over essence. It's like being a deep-sea diver in a world obsessed with staying on the surface. While others are content with the waves, you need to descend into the depths to feel alive. And that need, that thirst for depth, makes you a stranger in your own species. It's not that the world is evil, it's that it operates on a different frequency than yours. They live in AM, you receive in FM. Both are valid, but they're rarely compatible. So you learn to smile and nod, to translate your complexity into bite-sized words that won't scare anyone. You compress your inner vastness into conversations that feel safe and digestible. But that constant compression of your authentic being, that's the silent erosion few see, but you carry every single day. And it's in that erosion where the deepest suffering is born, having so much to give but finding no one who wants to receive it. There exists a language that's taught in no school, has no formal grammar or dictionary. It's the language of the soul, that subtle communication made of loaded silences, glances that say more than 1,000 words, and emotions that travel without need for sound. Intuitives are native speakers of this language, but they live in a world that only recognizes literal communication. When they try to explain that they feel something is wrong, people ask, "But what evidence do you have?" When they say they perceive sadness in someone who's smiling, they're told, "But they look happy." When they share a deep intuition about a situation, they hear, "Don't base decisions on assumptions." It's like being a translator without an audience, an interpreter in a land where no one believes another language exists. And so, silence becomes their refuge. Not the empty silence of those who have nothing to say, but the full silence of those who have too much to share and too few ears prepared to listen. This silence is paradoxical. It's protection and prison at the same time. It's protection because there, in the sanctuary of their inner world, they can be completely authentic without fear of judgment. Their thoughts can fly without restrictions. Their emotions can flow without explanations. Their intuitions can exist without scientific justifications, but it's also a prison because that same silence isolates them from the human connection they crave. They become spectators of their own life, watching from the window while others dance at a party they can't find the entrance to. Imagine carrying within you a universe of perceptions, insights, and deep truths, but living in constant translation, simplifying your essence so others can digest it. It's exhausting. It's like being a poet forced to communicate only through headlines, a composer who must reduce symphonies to three-note melodies. And here's where what Jung would have called the erosion of the soul is born. That gradual wear that occurs when your deepest truth remains constantly misunderstood. It's not dramatic pain. It's the constant drip that, drop by drop, empties the glass of your hope of being truly seen. Because the intuitive soul doesn't need to be fixed or explained. It needs to be recognized, honored, celebrated in its natural complexity. But in a world that confuses sensitivity with fragility, depth with complication, and silence with emptiness, that celebration rarely comes. So they learn to keep their most precious treasures in internal vaults, sharing only the jewels the world is willing to value. And thus, paradoxically, their greatest gift, their ability to feel and perceive beyond the obvious, also becomes their greatest loneliness. But Jung saw something others didn't. He understood that this apparent suffering could be the prelude to something extraordinary. Carl Gustav Jung spent his life studying the depths of the human psyche, but when he encountered introverted intuitives, he saw something that deeply fascinated him. He didn't see them as broken people needing repair, but as natural architects of bridges between worlds. They are, Jung said, the mediators of the collective unconscious. What does this mean? Picture the human psyche as a vast ocean. Most people live on the surface, conscious, rational, focused on the external world. But beneath that surface exists a vast and mysterious territory, the collective unconscious, that ancestral library where humanity's dreams, fears, symbols, and wisdom are stored. Introverted intuitives are the natural deep-sea divers of this ocean, not by choice, but by design. Jung observed that they're constantly receiving information from these depths, images, intuitions, hunches they can't explain logically but feel as absolute truths. This is why they perceive things others don't see. It's not magic. It's that they're connected to a network of information broader than immediate experience. They're like human antennas, picking up signals from frequencies most people don't even know exist. Jung understood that when an intuitive says, "I sense something's not right," without apparent evidence, they're often channeling ancestral wisdom, a primitive alarm system humanity has developed over millennia to detect subtle dangers. When they have that gut feeling about a person or situation, they're accessing archetypal patterns the collective unconscious has been recording for generations. But here's the challenge. Being a mediator between worlds means living constantly on the border. You never belong completely to the rational, tangible world, but you can't get completely lost in the realm of the invisible either. It's like being a simultaneous translator between heaven and earth, carrying messages in both directions. And that work, though sacred, is exhausting. Jung knew that many intuitives suffer because they reject their bridge nature. They try to live only in the conscious world, denying the images and perceptions emerging from the depths. But when they do this, Jung said, they disconnect from their source of vital energy. It's like a tree trying to survive only on sunlight, cutting the roots that connect it to the earth. Inevitably, it withers. That's why Jung insisted that intuitives shouldn't fight against their nature but embrace it. They must understand that their apparent problem of living between worlds is actually their deepest vocation. They are the modern shamans, the contemporary oracles, those who keep alive the connection between humanity and its collective soul. In an age where society has become excessively rational and materialistic, where we've lost touch with mysteries and deep meanings, intuitives serve as living reminders that there's more to reality than what we can measure or quantify. They are the guardians of the sacred in a world that has forgotten the sacred exists. But Jung didn't stop at theory. He knew that for this gift to become blessing instead of curse, intuitives needed to learn to channel their pain towards something creative and transformative. There's a sacred moment in every intuitive's life, the instant when they discover their pain isn't a curse, but the raw material of their deepest purpose. It's the moment they understand that the sensitivity that has caused them so much suffering is also the source of their most authentic creative power. Jung knew this. He knew that the wounded soul, when it finds its channel of expression, becomes an inexhaustible source of beauty, wisdom, and healing, not just for itself, but for the world. Art becomes the first language of the liberated soul. When the intuitive picks up a brush, a guitar, or simply allows themselves to create without judgment, something magical happens. All those nameless emotions, all those inexplicable perceptions, all those deep intuitions finally find a way to exist in the tangible world. It's as if the inner universe, so vast and complex, finally has permission to manifest. The painting isn't just paint. It's a map of emotional territories no one else has explored. The music isn't just sound. It's the translation of soul frequencies that would otherwise remain mute. Writing becomes pure alchemy. When the intuitive writes, whether in a journal, poetry, or letters they'll never send, they're distilling their essence into words. Every page is an act of courage. Every paragraph a declaration that their inner world deserves to exist. Jung especially recommended dream work and automatic writing because he knew that there, the unconscious speaks directly, without rational filters distorting the message. Meditation and introspection become sacred rituals. Not meditation to escape the world, but meditation to find yourself. That time alone isn't wasted time. It's investment in the most important relationship of your life, the relationship with your own soul. In chosen silence, not the silence imposed by misunderstanding, the intuitive finds their center, their truth, their power. Nature reveals itself as the perfect temple. Trees, rivers, mountains, oceans. These aren't simply landscapes for the intuitive. They're mirrors of their soul, places where they can breathe without explanations. Nature speaks their natural language, the language of cycles, mysteries, deep transformations. Walking in the forest isn't exercise, it's communion. Watching the sunset isn't entertainment, it's meditation in motion. Personal rituals become anchors of meaning. It might be lighting a candle each morning while reflecting on intentions. It might be creating a sacred space at home to keep objects representing their dreams. It might be writing 3 gratitudes each night before sleep. These rituals aren't superstition. They're ways of honoring the sacred nature of daily experience. And here's the alchemy. When the intuitive embraces these paths of expression, something fundamental shifts. The pain doesn't disappear, but it transforms. It stops being a weight they carry and becomes the fuel that propels them forward. Their sensitivity is no longer a vulnerability. It's their most powerful tool for creating beauty in a world that desperately needs it. Because when the intuitive finds their authentic voice, they discover something even deeper. Their gift wasn't just for them. There's a revelatory moment in the intuitive's journey when they grasp a profound truth. All their suffering, all their sensitivity, all those years of feeling different and misunderstood weren't cosmic accidents. They were preparation. Preparation to become what the world desperately needs. A healer of souls, a translator of pain, a lighthouse for others navigating the darkness of the same emotional ocean. Because here's the secret few understand. The deepest wounds become the most sacred doorways to authentic service. When the intuitive who has walked through their own dark night of the soul meets someone lost in that same darkness, something powerful happens. They don't need to fake understanding. They don't need to search for the right words. Their mere presence communicates. I've been there too. I know what you're feeling, and there is a way through. Their ability to perceive the invisible becomes a natural therapeutic gift. They can see past the masks people wear. They can feel the hidden pain behind forced smiles. They can detect the silent cry for help in seemingly casual conversation. They don't become saviors. They become compassionate mirrors where others can see their own light reflected back. Some find their service in therapy, psychology, spiritual coaching. Others through art that heals, music that comforts, writing that liberates. Some simply by being the friend who truly listens, the colleague who senses when someone needs support, the family member who offers authentic presence without judgment. Their mission doesn't always come with an official title or business card. Often it's as simple as being the one who actually sees people in a world that looks at them without seeing. And here's where the final alchemy occurs. When the intuitive discovers their pain had a greater purpose, that pain transforms. It's no longer just their pain. It becomes fuel to ease others' pain. Their sensitivity is no longer just their burden. It becomes the tool they use to help others carry theirs with more grace. Their experience of not belonging is no longer just their tragedy. It becomes the credential that authorizes them to create spaces where others who don't belong can find refuge. Jung knew it. Intuitives are humanity's wounded healers. Their own integration process transforms them into natural guides for others on the same path. Not because they have all the answers, but because they've asked the right questions. Not because they've reached the destination, but because they know the territory of the journey. And in that service, in that conscious offering of their gift to collective well-being, they finally find what they've always sought, a place where they belong, a purpose that justifies their difference, a community of souls speaking the same deep language. Because ultimately, the greatest gift they can give themselves is the gift they give the world, the courage to be completely who they are. At the end of every journey, there's a moment when the traveler realizes they weren't searching for an external destination. They were searching for the way back home, and true home was never a place. It was always a state of being. For the intuitive who has walked the long path of self-knowledge, who has transformed their pain into wisdom and their sensitivity into service, that sacred moment finally arrives, the return to inner home. This is the moment they stop apologizing for their depth. They stop trying to fit into molds never designed for them. They stop translating their soul into digestible versions for others. This is the moment they fully embrace their nature, the nature of one who sees beyond the visible, feels beyond the tangible, understands beyond the logical. And in that radical self-acceptance, something miraculous happens. The world that once rejected them begins to desperately need them, because in an age of superficiality, their depth becomes sanctuary. In an era of disconnection, their ability to see the human soul becomes medicine. In a time of constant noise, their reflective silence becomes refuge. They discover they don't need to change to be valuable. They don't need to be less sensitive to be accepted. They don't need to silence their truth to find their place. Their place was always there, waiting, at the intersection of their purest authenticity and their most generous service. In the inner home, the intuitive finally understands their difference wasn't nature's mistake. It was intentional design. Their sensitivity wasn't weakness. It was their superpower. Their tendency towards solitude wasn't antisocial. It was their way of recharging to give more to the world. They understand that every moment of pain prepared them to understand others' pain. Every instant of misunderstanding trained them to offer genuine understanding. Every experience of not belonging equipped them to create spaces where others can belong. In the inner home, there are no masks, no performance, no translation. There's only truth, pure, vulnerable, luminous. And from that place of radical authenticity, they can finally offer the world their most precious gift, living proof that it's possible to be deeply sensitive and deeply strong simultaneously, that it's possible to feel much and function well, that it's possible to be different and be valuable, that it's possible to be alone without being empty, silent without being absent, deep without being complicated. The inner home is where the intuitive discovers they were never broken. They were simply coming home. And as Carl Jung reminded us with wisdom that transcends time, your vision becomes clear when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Awaken, sensitive soul, the world was waiting for you.